Hi everybody, this video we're just going to be going over how to do a brake change for a 2008 Dodge Caravan, and it relatively is the same for a lot of other vehicles. Um, but yeah, so just getting started, jacking up the car, taking off the wheel, and the first thing we're going to be taking off is the brake caliper, two bolts, one at the top of the caliper, one at the bottom, um, and these two bolts are connected to the sliders. So watching the video, you'll be able to get an idea of what is required to remove the brake caliper. Sometimes after taking off the bolts, the brake caliper is um, there's some kind of a pressure, not so preventing it from kind of easily coming off, and you'll need to use some kind of a pry mechanism. Like you could use a really big kind of flathead screwdriver or a some kind of a pry bar to pull it off. Some people even use a technique to press the piston, the brake caliper piston inward um, to get it loose. But in this case, it came right off. And what I'm doing is I'm actually hanging the brake caliper onto the top of the strut. Some people use a bungee cord to just allowing it to swing. and and at this part I'm taking off the bracket, the brake caliper bracket um, that holds the brake pads and keeps the rotor in place as well, and I'm using a bar to get more leverage on the socket, which in most cases would be required. And it comes right off, and sometimes the rotor is seized onto the wheel bearing hub, and you'll have to use a hammer to kind of shake it up and it'll come right off. And I'm using a wire brush just to clean around the hub, and yeah, just kind of get off a lot of that dust that would have built up over time, so that when I put everything back on, it's nice and flush. So before starting this whole process, it's good to open up the brake master cylinder reservoir, because what you're doing here is you're pushing the piston back, and the fluid, the brake fluid would need to have some freeway. I guess you would have to allow that pressure to be released, so you would remove the lid from the brake master cylinder. So using a C-clamp, I'm depressing the brake piston, and you'll kind of have a feel as to how far you need to go. Some people, it's really important that you don't try to push it beyond where it should go, um, its limit, in other words. You get an idea as to, and I'm using the old brake pad, the one that sits on the outside, kind of as a buffer. And there's the new rotor. Um, I like to use, especially for minivans, premium rotors, premium pads. I feel that with the weight of the vehicle and just the way it's designed, a lot of pressure goes into the brakes. Um, I think these vehicles probably would normally require um, uh, I guess you could say stronger brakes, stronger mechanisms to stop it. It's a larger vehicle. Sometimes it's carrying a heavy, in most cases, carrying a heavy load. Um, and I don't think the brakes normally compensate for the pressure that's being taken on these vehicles. I find that out of all the vehicles I've ever owned, minivans are by far the ones that go through brake pads and rotors. So yeah, I don't do economy on this vehicle. I always do premium, and I find the benefits they pay off for themselves. Yeah, I'm using the bar to just make sure they're a little tight, not over tightening, of course, but just getting that feel. Right now, we're installing the hardware, the slider uh, pins. Essentially, that's where the brake pads will be sitting. So just getting rid of the old ones that were on the bracket and installing the new ones. And I'll be using a brake lubricant um, as well. And this lubricant is specific for metal to metal contact, high heat. You can get it at any hardware store. This is a tricky process fitting the brake pads in there. You don't want to damage those sliding pins either, or those kind of bracket pins. I'm not sure exactly what they're called, but talking about the little metal pieces that you put on the hardware that comes in with the brake pads. Yeah, you don't want to damage them as well, because if they get damaged or they move out of the place that they should be in, they could be grazing against the rotor as you're driving, making noise. So you don't want that to happen. So just taking your time and doing it right. And now I'm putting the brake caliper back on, um, and there are the And you also want to check those sliders, those slider pins. They're the ones where you're attaching that screw to those pins. They move. They've got a little rubber boot around them. If they're not moving, then you might need to pull them out and add some lubricant, clean them off, and then add some lubricant. But in this case, they were both moving. Didn't seem like the boots were damaged or anything like that. Yes, right there in that video clip, you could see that it was moving as I was turning the the bolt. Yeah, using the wrench and the ratchet at the same time to make sure those bolts get tightened. Great. Always good to double check all the bolts, make sure that everything is tight and everything is where it needs to be. Do your little kind of check, and then let's get the tire back on. Okay, so on the other side, I'm going to speed up the whole process. It's not going to go slow, and I just wanted to also show that how the other side is done. It's no different, but something does happen in this video to show that when working on older vehicles or any other vehicle, sometimes things happen, and you'll get to see exactly how when things don't go the way it's supposed to, it's not the end of the world. We can always fix things. On this side, you'll see that the slider pin, um, the slider bolt that holds the caliper onto the caliper bracket. The bolt it gets broken off while I'm trying to put it back on after replacing the rotor and brake pads. Um, so I just wanted to show how that, although that issue happens, that it's not the end and things can continue to go forward. Yep, took the caliper off, hung it on the strut, taking off the caliper bracket now. Using the wire brush to clean up the just clean up the wheel bearing hub. So I got the hardware already on the bracket and the brake lubricants. Yeah, see, it's kind of hard to see, but I'm depressing the brake piston back into the caliper so that I can put the caliper on top of the bracket. Using the C-clamp and putting the caliper back onto the bracket. And here's where the issue happens. So I don't know if it was over tightening or if it was a combination of a little bit of over tightening and wear and tear. Um, you know, just the fact that these are Canadian winters and a lot of salt on the roads, and these parts get exposed to those elements, and so these things happen. What I'm doing is I'm tightening these bolts as I normally do, and get a little tight there. Yep, give it a good tug, and then this is where the problem happens. And there you go. The head of the slider pin screw broke right off. And these things happen. Sometimes it happens due to over tightening, and like I said, it's just these vehicles are exposed to the elements and salt and other things that are on the road, and over time, just kind of, put a toll on them. So there's the screw there, and it just broke right off. I went to the local hardware store, picked up a replacement. You can buy the screws right by themselves, and it costs about $14 Canadian dollars. Took it off, and here's where you get to actually see what the slider pins look like when you just pull them off. So I just pulled it right out of there, and I am going to open the new one. I think I slowed down the video here to show you. That's the new screw in my hand, and that's the new slider pin. And I'm going to, this is a different brake lubricant. This is for rubber to metal. The first one that I was using on the brake pads was for metal to metal. So yeah, this one could go in the slider pin slots there. It's a new part, so making sure there's new lubrication on there. I'm going to use the old boot. It came with a new one, but nothing wrong with the old one, so just going to keep that there. Top one's moving fine, but I think I decided to add some more while I was there. And that's really all it is. Not the end of the world. Put the caliper back on. Tightening the screws. Yeah, in these cases, it would be really good to have a torque ratchet, 3/8 torque ratchet. But I don't have one. I just do it all by feel, and probably might be the next thing I get. and torque everything to specification. I'm sure that information is available somewhere on the internet. Turning the steering wheel back so I can put the wheel back on. And that's the great thing about doing this job by yourself. You save a lot of money that otherwise would go to labor. You can turn that into buying premium parts that would last you longer, perform better, and these are brake parts, added safety. Um, so you can't really put a cost on that. So direct that money elsewhere. It's always a sense of pride in doing things yourself, and you know the care and effort that's gone into servicing your own vehicle. I want to thank everybody for joining me and watching another one of my videos. This is great. Please leave a comment below. Please subscribe. I'll try to put a video up every now and then whenever I got some time. The mask that I'm using around my face is from SA Company. They're a great company. They provide masks that protect you from dust, debris. It's microfiber, breathable, and it comes in all great different images that are imprinted on there. So yeah, take a look there. I can put a link for their website below. Um, and the ratchet that I use is a regular Mastercraft ratchet. I love it. It's great. It's got the extended pole. You don't have to use any pipes. Um, so it's always good to have. It's just one less thing you got to carry when you're doing a job. And I can put a link for that as well. Take care. Thanks.